I'm using the new Logic Trace 2022 and I'm going to digitize a profile of a Jeep to make a brooch. My first try at some jewelry. You can see here this is the new look for the Logic Trace 2022. First thing I'm doing here is defining the four corners of the diagram. This will produce a good display on the screen when you touch those four corners. You'll be able to see here that I'm flipping through three selections. I'll use the trace, I'll use the line, and I'll use the curve. You can see there that small blue mark, that's my starting spot. The starting spot is important to me because when I go around that outer perimeter of the Jeep, when I come back around the backside, I don't want to trace over where I started because that will cause a crossed vector. This is probably a good spot to talk about the new Logic Trace 2022. The program has been completely rewritten, utilizing new technology, and will work with all the computers. So that'll work with the Macs and a PC. The program has two windows. On the left side is the control window, and on the right side is the display window. The control window on the left has easy to use buttons to switch between lines, arcs, and curves, and circles. The program is also designed that control window on the left can be moved to another device, say for instance a cell phone or an iPad. You just use the required software and you can extend your display and you can move that menu system over to an iPad or a cell phone, which would make tracing very simple because you could have that right beside you to make the selections. I'm not using that feature because I would have to end up having a third camera on the control window, which could be on my iPad. The program also has a lot of user setups, so you can configure it to suit yourself. Like for instance, I set up the line display at 0.5 to give it a nice smooth thin line. The other thing I always recommend is to save your work frequently. So every once in a while I'll just stop my tracing and I'll save the file and just give it a different name each time, and when I'm completely finished, then I'll call that the final file. Also, the display window, the one on the right side, has improved resolution and there has been added a zoom feature. All in all, I find it easy to use, easy to configure, to suit the way I like to trace. I picked this Jeep brooch as my first attempt at trying some jewelry, and also I'm doing this in a metal, wood, and an acrylic. This is all quite new, especially the metal part. These pieces are all CO2 laser cut. The difference is I'm using stainless steel or cold steel, and I'm using oxygen assist as compared to air assist. Cutting of the metal is all new to me, so I'm just in the learning stages, and that's why I've done about 3 attempts here to see the differences in the cut. And it looks like the stainless steel is the best cut because the cold steel and the galvanized metal, which is tin, they're rough on the backside. Another good point to make here, when you save a file, it saves it as DXF, and TLG. So when you want to take a break or say continue tracing the next day, you would just reload that TLG file and carry on with your trace. That's a very nice feature. That reloading file is automatic. You don't have to do anything. You just save your file as DXF and it automatically creates two files. I should have mentioned at the first about the diagram size. I always make my diagrams about 16 inches square or 17 inches square, because the larger the diagram, the easier it is to trace. And in this case, I'm doing a piece of jewelry or a brooch, which could be 3 inches by 3 inches or 2 inches by 2 inches, so it's easier to trace out a large diagram and then shrink the final file. Here I've loaded the finished file into Vectric Aspire 11.0, checked the vector quality, and resized the project to a small brooch size, say 3 inch by 3 inch. Also ran it through the simulator just to see how it's going to look. Now I'm going to take that file, going to load it into the laser software, and the first cut I'm going to do is going to be 1/4 inch pine plywood. Also tried the same cut on masonite. Shown here, I'm cutting 1/4 inch black acrylic. Easy cutting. What surprised me about the 1/4 inch acrylic cut was the piece was very strong. Those small mirrors, they won't break off. Shown here was my first attempt at cutting 1.0 millimeter stainless steel. I changed the settings and tried it again. It's a better looking cut. Here I tried cold steel, that wasn't good. This is the final cut on that 1.0 millimeter stainless steel. This is the best cut that I got. What surprised me the most was the stainless steel cuts, and when you flip it over to the backside it's smooth, whereas when you cut cold steel and you flip it over the backside, you got to grind all that roughness off. Here I thought I would try galvanized metal, which is tin. It cuts it okay, but it's rough on the backside. So the conclusion to make, the stainless steel is your best cutting material. It's good clean edges. This cold steel cut is rough. The wood cuts are fine and the acrylic cuts are great. This is the final stainless cut.